Okay, this is Invasions Volume 1. This was some Wisdom Owl games, and it's a game about the Barbarian Invasions of Europe, from 350 AD onwards. Now, this is just a bit of an update on what I've been doing with this. The main thing you've got to be aware of is all the documentation, pretty much apart from these sheets here. Well, that's even questionable. We'll look at that in a second. But pretty much all the documentation has to be replaced. Now, the living rules are these ones here. So you need a copy of the living rules 1.1f, and you need a copy of the appendices 1.1f. This appendices document also has the events and calamities, the updated versions in here. It has your nation control sheets in here as well. These show you the mechanics for the individual empires and the big kingdoms. Right, so you've got Rome, Byzantium. Okay, and then you go on to the primary fraction for a player's group, because there's basically the red group, which is really the Roman Empire and a few other tribes and things with it. The blues, which are mainly barbarians, even though there is the Indian Gupta Empire over there. The Huns, which are pretty much all barbarians. They don't start with any civilizations on the board. And you've got the gold team, which they have Persia as being their primary civilization. Now, so each one of these sheets covers it. Yeah, so they're covering the major fractions for the areas. So Goths, even though the Guptas are a kingdom for blue, because that's an expansion, this is showing the Goths as the primary fraction grouping. And then we've got the victory points. Okay, so all these victory points, just let me check something. Like if we were looking at Rome Orientalis, this is in okay, so Romans group 1, right, all the victory points and everything have changed as well, potentially. So these cards, you've got to be wary of what's on there. They might be the same. These victory point instructions might be the same as the ones here, but these are the ones you should be using from the living rule set. Okay, so you can pretty much say that every single bit of documentation that came with this game is out. Now you've got tables here. Okay, seeing if every table is in here. No, they're not. Unit purchase table isn't in here, but it isn't in this section on tables, but it is. Every single fraction has this thing here, but they're there anyway. They're the same for every civilization there is, kingdoms and empires. Barbarians are a wee bit different how they do build units, etc. So that's a good idea to do that. You're gonna have to, I'm keeping a master bookkeeping sheet here, okay, so I can see at a glance what's going on. So anything happens on the map, for example, Alexandria, due to a plague, Alexandria lost 1 point. Okay, So the city total for Eastern Rome went down 1. So that's been updated on this sheet. And also because of the plague, they lost 3 revenue from gypsies. Okay, so you're keeping this master log here, and then this thing which I've printed off is an Excel spreadsheet. Now, because I've not got a computer anywhere near this board, I've just printed it off, but this basically tells you all the cities, what level they're at. It gives you area incomes, maximum kingdom incomes, gives you the type of terrain of all the things, and it correlates with another spreadsheet. So we go over here and you see like civilization 1 is Rome, Western Rome. So I can then see who controls everything. Civilization 2 is Eastern Rome. So I keep this up to date, right, as well. Anyway, yeah, I keep it up to date. So I've updated the state of Alexandria being a level 2 city now rather than level 3 in here as well. Now you might think that's a lot of messing around, but it isn't really, because it saves you a huge amount of work. Because as long as you've got this base here and nothing's changed, you calculating your national income is simple. I've seen people working at this. I've seen people spending on videos, spending an hour just calculating the national income. Once you got this, you're basically talking about 15 minutes maximum to do what would have been well over an hour of prattling around and tearing your hair out. But the thing is, you've got to update it religiously. Another thing, you're keeping your victory point totals. What I'm doing, I'm using these little coins to show me how many victory points the various civilizations. Remember, you're working as a group of civilizations here, so this would cover. Well, no, they do total individually. Sorry, just ignore that. You'll total them individually, and they will, at the end of the term, they'll be building up on these sheets here. Okay, because ultimately, to win this game, your fraction's got to get more victory points than anybody else. I've changed the way I've got things orientated here, so I've got civilization groups roughly together. Okay, now that makes what I've also done as I was going through here, I've made a few mistakes with setup. I'd included some kingdoms that, like Escadum here, that doesn't even come into existence, and Sardinia, which don't come into existence until the Western Empire falls to bits. There's information in the sheets for Rome that tells you all the stuff like how the empire falls. You don't necessarily have to worry too much about the barbarians in terms of income and things like that. They don't work like that. They're much simpler. But just remember, they will reach a point where they will eventually form into civilizations, assuming they don't get completely annihilated. So all that's really happened so far is I've done the raiders. There's like these little barbarian tribes, like the Picts, for example. They're not standard barbarians. All they ever do is pillage your border provinces, and they're just a general annoyance. So I've done those, and there were 3 raids into civilized territory. Not particularly effective either. We've also drawn some event cards. Like you get a certain number of event cards depending on whether you're a kingdom. A kingdom, you get event cards based on there's numbers. So that one would say for that's a barbarian. Forget that one. Here's a good one. This kingdom would normally get 0, but based on your leader, they'll get 1 event card there. And also that second number is 1 diplomacy card. So we've drawn the event cards for the various kingdoms and empires. The barbarians don't draw event cards. You've got 2 types of event card. You've got these browny colour ones. They're not specific to a particular area. Now this one's just this 5 series of tables you ended up placing a random plague, which actually went into possibly one of the worst areas for anybody to get a plague, which is Gyptus, which is your commercial bread basket basically of the Eastern Empire. But other ones that you get, these like little eye ones, these actually are very specific to the guy who actually draws. Well, I say the group that draws these cards gets these. So Persia drew this one now. They can use that. This one's quite a good one. You've really got to use them in the first turn. There's not many. See, these are like longevity things, and these ones have to be played at a specific time. Usually, but in the military phase. But these ones have to be used by the end of the game. Not the end of the game, the end of the game turn. Right, so you got the events. Actually, that one is a diplomacy card. After the events were drawn, you also have a diplomacy card draw, which yet again is based on these numbers along the side here. Any differences? Empires tend to get more cards than kingdoms. Okay. The only other thing I've done is the income phase for all the civilizations using those spreadsheets as I've shown you. And not a lot. It's a complicated game, but it's a game that's heavy on mechanics. So it's stepping you through all these little mechanical processes, so it maybe seem totally overwhelming at the start, but as you start doing things, following through the rule book, it starts to make sense. You don't necessarily have to understand the whole thing right at the beginning when you start playing, but you could read the entire rule book, but I think you'd get overwhelmed. I think your head would blow up. So I'm just treating it, because I'm playing solo, I'm not really bothered who wins this. I always win and I always lose. So I'm just playing this because I like this historical period and I just want to see how this all pans out, Because it looks great in theory. But the people I have seen play it have found themselves overwhelmed with the bookkeeping. But I think using this spreadsheet and the master sheet here, I think I can keep that under control. It's certainly not as bad as the bookkeeping for Imperium Romanum 3, which is just an absolute nightmare. Okay, that'll do. So pretty much all I've done in terms of mainly printing out extra or replacement documents for everything. It's just a shame the game came out in the state it did.